Hello everybody and welcome back to this new video for the YouTube channel Il Book of the Hobbit, which translates to The Hobbit's Hole in the Ground. Together I'm joined by delightful and incredible Vanali from the International Discord server. Welcome Vanali.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for having me here, and I'm excited to be able to talk with you today.
Yeah, and the topic of the talk is The Wastes of the Witch-King, which is a fun expansion realized by Vanali, no other by herself. And it's an amazing fun expansion that I discovered on BGG some time ago, Board Game Geek. And I was amazed that no more other people were talking about it, and I wanted to give you the space to talk about it and share it with the online community and also the not online community. There are also other people who would like to play it like in normal board games with a physical copy. So without further ado, we can proceed. Okay, so I will leave you some space to talk about the overview.
Yeah, so the Wastes of the Witch-King, the goal here is to improve the game for Eriador, since I have some statistics here, but the Grey Havens and the Shire are the two least captured victory points on the entire map, excluding Fate of Erebor exclusive stuff. So the goal of the Waste of the Witch-King is to encourage more people to play in Eriador. This is through adding a few new characters to both sides, like Cìrdan, Halbarad, and a new version of Strider Dùnadan for the Free Peoples. While the Witch King, well, we have a new variant of the Witch King. We have Sharkey, and then we have the Last Prince for the Shadow. And then each side also receives a new faction that's intended to work in Eriador.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I would start with those factions because I think those are the most complicated thing to understand, even though like they're not that complicated at all. But like compared to the characters, maybe it's more difficult. So
yes,
two factions, and the one for the Free People and one for the Shadow. The one for the Free People is the Rangers of the North.
all right. So the goal here is the Rangers of the North are pretty easy fodder for a new faction, simply because they you see a lot of them in the early parts of Fellowship. You also see them in Hunt for the Ring through a lot of the cards there. So I already had some idea of a baseline to work with, even if Hunt for the Ring is a very different game than War of the Ring. So the Wastes of the Witch King, it's imagining them as a bit of a groups of smaller elite soldiers that can both help the Free Peoples militarily. I designed them to work more like one of the Shadow factions than one of the Free Peoples factions. And then they can also help the Fellowship through one of their cards. So
yeah,
to enter play, it's just the North Nation's active. If the North's active, you can use a muster recruit faction to bring the Rangers into play. You recruit 2 Rangers plus any add to the starting setup in Bree.
Yeah.
And then to recruit them, recruit faction, recruit 1 in Bree, even if Bree's conquered, or certain faction event cards.
And for the purpose of making them enter play, also Bree doesn't necessarily needs to be like as for the recruiting. It doesn't need to be unconquered. Even if it's conquered, you can still bring in the faction, right?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. And as we're going to see, there are also some faction cards that allows the recruitment of these ranger figures, which is, for example, the Great Company that is changed from the basic. The character card from the base game into a new faction card, but we're going to see this later on.
I think so.
So, as you mentioned, they move differently from other maybe Free People's factions. And there is example more in the movement some other shadow factions like Spiders, Dùnadans or Corsairs as well. because
Yeah.
they can move with a 3 people army. They can move alone, they can move with a 3 people army, and the novelty is that they can also move with a companion.
Yes, so they can move with the companion if the ranger starts in the same region as the companion, and they can't be picked up or dropped off. And then there are a couple unusual situations, but generally, if the companion can make the move, the ranger can come with.
Yeah. We're gonna see that there is a notable exception with one of the new cards introduced by you in this expansion, which is Hero of Arnold, but we're going to talk about it later on. And yes, again, I wouldn't dwell too much into the details of how the factions movement, withdraw, like all this advancement, like it works, because it's fully explained in your PDF in examples a little bit. The mechanics are already presented in Warm expansion, so I would move on. So yes, as you mentioned, like they are meant to support the fellowship or interact with the fellowship, besides other effects. But there is also like the attacking aspect of these rangers that is provided by this new faction event card called Deeds Seldom Sung.
Yes, and it's as strong as the attacks of the Ents or the Dead Men, though with a couple of differences, notably that first off, unlike there being 2 copies of March of the Ents or Wraiths of Fear, there's only 1 copy of Deed Seldom Sung in the faction deck, so you want to make your attack count.
Yeah.
And then you also would think that since you could stack up 4 or 5 rangers on a single shadow army, that this would be very powerful, but I think if you look at some of the new options the shadow gets, like with we're going to see the Witch King, King of Angmar, we're going to see some of the new cards. I do think that it's a bit justified to have this be such a strong attack, just to give the 3 peoples more counterplay against what the shadow gets.
Yeah, I was worried. I think I told you before the recording of the video that first time that I read this faction, I was like, man, that looks like an incredible effect, attacking effect. Because by the way, like you can eliminate any number of region at an instant, which you, by the way, you can also do with the dead man as well. That's not the point, but like and with the ants. But I think in this case, like it would look like quite powerful. But anyway, like I think that what you said is correct. It looks very powerful, but considering some of the new options also provided to the shadow player in that region, in that part of the map, it's completely justified.
Yes.
Yeah, again, not going through all the details of calling to battle or other stuff. I think it's just worth mentioning that as if for the other 3 people faction presented in Warme, like these, there are a total of 8 figures of rangers, and once they're eliminated, they're gone. They will never come back again. That's it. And yes, and once the ranger figures are not in play at any moment, the ranger faction is immediately out of the game. As for the eagles, yeah, and I would go on with the next faction, which is the one provided for the shadow player, which is the Barrow-Wights, which was an incredible surprise for me. But I will let you talk about it, but I think in order to understand the Barrow-Wights, one needs to understand this new concept of barrows. But I'll leave this with you.
Yeah, so Barrows are the other 7 factions. They are well, out of the 8 factions, 6 of them are recruited in specific regions. The dead men are recruited all in the army of the dead. The Barrow, so they have 1 region that you can recruit them in, and that region can be moved. The Barrow-Wights, it's instead of recruiting, say, 1 in Cìrdan, 1 in Angmar, you recruit 1 in each region with a barrow, and so
Yes, indeed.
every time you recruit out, it's 1 in each barrow, and the thing about Barrows is that the shadow player can create more of them, either through the use of the faction event card Dread in His Heart, which is just if the Witch King's in play, choose a region that's not an unconquered free people settlement, place a Barrow there. It can also be done through his through an ability of the King of Angmar, which we'll discuss when we get to him, or through one of their call to battle cards. And you can have an unlimited number of Barrows. I just included a Barrow token in the zip file, so just print as many as you need. There are a couple rules about, like, they can't be in the same region as an unconquered free people stronghold. If you eliminate the Barrow-Wight faction, you also eliminate the Barrows.
Or if the Witch King, any version is eliminated, you need
Yeah.
to... And the other thing I would mention is that at the start of the game, as you set up the game with this expansion, you immediately get two barrels, which one of them is in Angmar and the other one is in Cìrdan. And then, as you said, you get to make more of them through the ability of the Witch King, through faction or call to battle cards associated with this faction. But yes, that's pretty much it. And I think it will also maybe worth to mention what for the less lore inclined people in the community to make a little bit of a digression what Barrows or Barrow-Wights are. Maybe mention already a little bit.
So we learn in, I believe it's the appendices. It might be one of the letters or unfinished tales or something, but I believe it's in one of the appendices that the Barrow-Wights were created when the Witch King sent evil spirits to inhabit the bodies of the slain Dùnadan of Cìrdan in what would become the Barrow Downs. So the reasoning that these barrows can be spread is because all through Middle-earth, like, whenever he conquers a settlement, it's trivially easy because there's just a bunch of freshly made corpses to send those evil spirits to inhabit, or in places like, you have, like, Holland, which used to be the Elven Kingdom of Eregion until it was destroyed by Sauron in the Second Age. Or you have much of Rovanion, much of that sort of eastern region of the board, like east of Mirkwood, or that region in between Gondor and Dol Guldur. That was either part of the Kingdom of Rovanion or part of Gondor until the Wain Riders and the Balcoth and the Great Plague. So there are a lot of corpses all through Middle-earth, and so if the Witch King wanted to, he could send these evil spirits wherever he wanted to and essentially create a new Barrow Downs.
Which is at the heart of the mechanic of the new character, the Witch King, as we're going to see later on. But yes, and I like a lot. There is this synergy with a new important character with a faction, which in the normal game with expansions we maybe have seen a little bit with Aragorn, with the Deadman, or like with a companion in Fangorn, which can also be triggered. But I think here is even more, the connection is deeper. Like, it's very like an important synergy.
Yes, yeah, I actually even designed the Barrow-Wights first, and then I designed the King of Angmar around the Barrow-Wights.
Oh wow, interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. Yes, again, in order to be put into play, the Witch King, any version, must be in a barrow.
Barrow, which is the Barrow-Wight mustering region is an older name, which still pops up in a couple spaces in this rulebook.
It's fine. There are some corrections to be made about it. It's totally understandable. You made a lot of corrections recently, as I understood. And yes, so in order to bring them in, you just use a master recruit faction die as any other kind of result as any other kind of faction, and the starting setup is one Barrow-Wight figure in each Barrow-Wight. Plus any other additional Barrow-Wight recruited by faction event cards. And yes, as we said before, by default, at the start of the game, you start with Angmar and Cìrdan to be Barrows, but later on in the game, even before the Barrow-Wights are in game, you can create other Barrows. And so as soon as you bring them into play, you put one Barrow in each Barrow-Wight. Sorry, the opposite, one Barrow-Wight in each Barrow. So
in each Barrow, yeah.
And also the same applies as you want to recruit them. When you use a recruit faction die, you recruit one Barrow-Wight in each Barrow. Differently from again, as for the normal warmer factions, these figures there are a maximum of 8 figures of Barrow-Wights, sorry. And once they died, they are not completely eliminated. They can be recruited again indefinitely. So
and the other thing is, there's a note there that might not be as clear, but if you have, say, 4 Barrow-Wights left to recruit, and you have 5 Barrows, then you just recruit the 4 Barrow-Wights in 4 Barrows of your choice.
Exactly. It's totally up to you. And Barrow-Wights, when it comes to movement, they resemble maybe more the eagles, because they kind of move alone. Like, they don't move everywhere on the map, like they have a limited movement, but they move up only to 2 regions, and they cannot pass impassable borders. They cannot cross impassable borders, and they cannot enter an unconquered Free People's stronghold. But for anything else, they're allowed to move anywhere on the map, so they can move also on like unconquered Free People cities or citadels, or in regions where they have Free People armies. But they move alone. They don't move with other armies, like we have seen, for example, for the Spiders or the Corsairs or the Dùnadans. Like they just move alone.
Yeah.
Which I think thematically makes sense as well. It's not like I wouldn't imagine them to be like, I would imagine them to be more kind of in some sense like dead men, but in a different way.
It's like the same thing where the dead men aren't just joining the normal ranks of Gondor, they're their own thing.
Exactly. Again, like as for the Rangers of the North, these Barrow-Wights, they have a nice interaction with the Fellowship, and they also have abilities that allows them to attack. In particular, there is this new faction event card called Withered Land that allows them to attack. And the attack, I'm gonna let Vanali explain how it's done, but
so unlike with there are a couple key differences from the ranger attacks. It's still, you move them and then you attack Free People's armies. The key differences are the rangers can only attack one shadow army, even if there's like, say if the shadow had an army in Angmar and one in Mount Gundabad, you could only, and you had rangers in both regions, you could still only attack one of them. Here, though, if you have Barrow-Wights in the Shire and Barrow-Wights in Bree, and there are Free People's armies there, you just attack both of them.
If you have, if both they have Free People's army and Barrow-Wights, yes.
Yep. With the Rangers, it's you have to eliminate first, then you get 3 dice at 4, so if you miss, you just got unlucky.
Yeah.
With these, it's you roll 1 die at 5 for each Barrow-Wight, and then it's only if you hit that you remove a Barrow-Wight. So
indeed,
it's and then those are the key differences. There's also, they can be called to battle, which is explained by their cards. And then elimination, if the Witch-King gets eliminated, any version, then the Barrow-Wights are immediately just eliminated as well.
Exactly. And all Barrows are removed from the border as well.
Yep.
In that case. Yeah.
Because the Barrow-Wights are now out of the game, so there's no point in them.
Sure. Yes, so this is for the factions. That is the most complicated part of the expansion, which, as you see, is very easy. So you can imagine how easy it is to read and go through the new characters. So we have 3 new characters from the free people and 3 new characters for the shadow player. I will start with the 3 people, and I would give you a place to talk about Lord Cìrdan. It was like a very pleasant surprise for me as I was reading this PDF.
Yeah, so Cìrdan, you'll notice here that he's modeled a lot after Elrond and Galadriel, the 2 elven keepers from Loam, and that is actually intentional. He was for a large part of the early Third Age, he actually did keep Narya, and it was only when he gave Narya to Gandalf upon arriving in Middle-earth. So Cìrdan's sort of leadership and his level 3 for combat, that and his recruiting conditions, those match up with Elrond and Galadriel. He doesn't have a ring ability or a new die because he doesn't have that ring. He gave it to Gandalf. And then, so his special ability is Cìrdan's ships on the bottom, which, if the elves are at war, you can use a muster to recruit an elven unit, regular elite, in a coastal region containing a free people's army. So it's sort of a more spread out version of Cìrdan's ships, where you could absolutely put 3 elven elites in Dol Amroth.
Yeah.
It's just going to take longer. And then the other thing is that since now there are more options to attack Rivendell and the Grey Havens.
Exactly, like you can do that,
yeah.
but it comes with a price, because now we have new forces coming from Angmar, and like if you want to reinforce the Lamot, it's up to you, but then Grey Havens and Rivendell become quite exposed in that sense. Without mentioning also Woodland Realm or like
Lorien.
Lorien, yeah.
Yeah.
And yes, I think it's also like first time I read it, I was like, oh my god, like this is too powerful. But in the end, you need to use a master action die first to bring into play Cìrdan, and then with the master action result, you bring in 1 elite, and then with a third master action, you bring in the 2nd elite. So in order to match the power of the base strategy card of Cìrdan's ship of the game, you need at least 3 action die. So I think that's a good compromise. It's powerful, but it's not that crazy powerful. So I would say that that's a good balance. And as you said, you have to be careful. If you want to recruit more in the lab mode, good luck with the rest of your Helvet strongholds.
Yes.
Right. Again, like all the details involving 4 players, 3
Yeah.
people player, like people can read through this by themselves, reading your amazing PDF. That is an amazing work. I would proceed to the next character, which is Halbarad.
Yeah, so if you don't recognize Halbarad, do not worry. He's a very I don't even think he's in the movies. Peter Jackson cut him out, but
yeah.
he's the leader of the Grey Company, a band of Rangers of the North who came to Rohan to assist Aragorn, and then they like went through the Paths of the Dead, and they were at the Pelennor Fields. So, but Halbarad, he's sort of like how Cìrdan was modeled after after Elrond and Galadriel. Halbarad was modeled after the Loam versions of Gimli, Boromir, and Legolas. Where he's level 1, 2 for the purposes of movement only. He adds an extra die in combat, but only when he's with Rangers. And then recruiting him, you'll see that he's going to naturally be with Rangers. Either the Grey Company also recruits Rangers, or either of his other recruitment conditions, which is a muster or recruit faction die if the North's active, to put him in Bree or in a Free People's Army containing a Ranger figure. And then you also see that he's a companion, which he doesn't have another ability, I just didn't want him to start overshadowing the, like Legolas, Elven Prince, or Boromir, Captain General of Gondor.
Yeah, but I think that it's already quite of a powerful effect that he has because, like, first of all, if you bring him in with a great company, the ability to bring in rangers not only in the Eriador region but in other parts of the map region, together with Strider Aragon, I think it's quite relevant because, as we're going to see, they also interact with the Fellowship, these rangers. And so you could think, okay, but the only way in order to interact, if my fellowship is going through Eriador, which is a possibility only in the Worm, but you can also do that with the discard game company if the fellowship is going through maybe close to Gondor and or Ruan, wherever Strider Aragon happens to be on the map. So I think that's quite interesting. And the other particularity is that the ability to move, like it works very well in synergy with the Rangers, because we remind that the Rangers can move up together with Halbarad, and Halbarad can move up to 2 regions of distance. So the ability to move these Rangers so far away and so efficiently, I think it's a very nice interaction between these 2 things, the character and the faction. I think it's... Yeah, you keep doing this throughout all your expansion, and I think it's a very nice thing what you're doing.
Yes, and then, which, speaking of the Western Way, that reminds me that there is in the setup.
Yeah, maybe we can show it already
We should
here.
just take a look at that. Yeah, there's an optional rule called Beyond the White Towers where the Western Way it's not in the character deck. It just starts on the table already.
Yeah, which I love,
And
because I miss those games where I crave those games where I can play the Western way, and why should you wait? Just put it on the table. It's just another option for you, for the 3 people, and I think it makes sense. Also thematically, your expansion is perfect.
then we want
Yeah,
to. There are also some compatibility rules for other expansions, but
yeah, exactly.
we want. We don't need to get in fully with
No,
those. This
yeah.
is intended to be played with both Lords of Middle Earth and Warriors of Middle Earth. It's completely compatible with Kings of Middle Earth as well. And
Yes.
then there are a couple of rules for if you want to play without Loam or without Loam, though I would recommend playing with Loam and Loam to give you the full experience.
Agreed. And yes, this is it. So if you people are interested after watching this video, you can check out all the details of the different setups reading the PDF. But we focus on the important juice, the important stuff. So having been done with Halbarad, we can move on to the new version of Strider, which, if I understand correctly, the concept, the design was born after a little bit of disappointment for the alternate version of Strider present in Lords of Middle-earth from the Council of Rivendell alternate setup.
Yeah, that one, I think outside of people just learning Loam for the first time and trying out all the alternate companions, I've only ever seen somebody play with Strider Dùnadan once, and
to be fair, sorry to jump in, we have an Italian player which has become quite known recently, which is Mole, the vice world champion.
I think
He's a big fan of him. Okay, yes.
Yeah, I think it was with Mole that I saw him.
He's a big fan of him, and we have many discussions together about it, and he still did not convince me fully to play Dùnadan, the Strider. I still believe the base version to be better, but I think he's the only person that I know that he likes the alternative version. Yeah, but yeah, so I agree with your point.
This version, if you look at his guide ability on the next page, we'll see that you can instead of the Strider sprint where you're spending all your dice to hide or move, So you're trading dice for speed. Here you're trading your dice for safety. If he's the guide, you can use any action die result to discard 2 action dice in the hunt box. So they could be eyes, or they could be free people's character dice if you want to be moving on 6 again. To a minimum of 1 eye, you can't just be moving completely safely forever. And this also unintentionally has some really great synergy with Kings of Middle-earth, because now if he's getting rid of all of those eyes in the hunt box, then he's also preventing the Shadow from performing their corruption attempts.
Yes, indeed. And as you told me before, this was like a nice coincidence, like a happy coincidence, like because you were working on this before the release of Calm, and after that came
Yeah.
out, it came out to be like a nice interaction for that as well. So that's nice. Um,
He just, yeah. He will start and play if he's playing with. If you're playing with the Council of Rivendell, then you can start then Strider can start. This version of Strider Dùnadan can start the game in the Fellowship instead of the Ranger of the North, or instead of the original Loam version of Strider Dùnadan. If you really want to use him.
Indeed. As you said, you can use any action die to discard 2 action dice in the hunt box, which can mean character dice and a high. But the only limitation is that an eye must always, if it was allocated or if it was rolled in the first place, 1 eye must always be in the, like you cannot remove all eyes from the hunt box. 1 must remain there in some sense. And I think this new version is very fitting, especially when playing together with Loam and Worm, because when you play with both expansion, and I think this is mostly due because of Worm than Loam, but like the game extends, like the game takes longer, maybe 10, 12 turns. And so I find it fitting that this version of the Dùnadan is less focused on the study sprint, and is like, you know what, no, the game is going to be longer, but we may want to have more resilience for the Fellowship. We may want to move it more safely, which comes to a cost, but like it's totally understandable. So I like how this works in synergy with all the rest, like the way you build this expansion, thinking about the context of everything. I like this. Like that proves that like you have knowledge about like what's the landscape of this wonderful community, and also this wonderful board game and its expansions. Because one may lose itself with thinking, but what if it does this, and this, and you can get yourself lost in design. Like you kept it simple. It's very easy to understand. Once you understand Loam and Worm, you can integrate this expansion very easily, and it works in synergy with everything else. Like it's a very nice addition. And I honestly, as I'm reading it, I don't see any reason why one would not play with it if they're playing with Loam plus Worm. Like I honestly don't see any reason, because
I think if you wanted to go for the Strider sprint, then you would still choose the original.
Sure.
I think I tried balancing it around it being a choice where you could argue for both options. So the previous version I think I had was a bit too weak. Maybe I should nerf him again. If he's so strong that he's pretty much the default choice.
Yeah, but yeah, no, I think this is a good design. So this was for the new characters introduced by the expansion for the free people. Let's go to the shadow player new possibilities, and we have the protagonist, the big man of the expansion, as we may say.
Yeah.
Even though, as you just mentioned before, you started with the Barrow-Wights and then you came into this, but still we have the expansion, so it gives the name to the expansions. Let's introduce the new Witch King, which is the King of Angmar.
Yes,
and
the Witch King, King of Angmar.
Yeah,
which this is imagining a scenario where Sauron sends the Witch King back to Angmar instead of having him hunting the ring like in Loam, or commanding his armies on the Pelennor fields. He's sending the Witch King to go rebuild the kingdom of Angmar and go threaten Eriador again. And so we see that a couple key things are that he is not a non-flying minion. He's a non-flying minion. He cannot move infinitely. This is because I think due to both one of his abilities and then one of the strategy cards that we'll see later, I think if the King of Angmar was able to easily escape from Eriador and be unleashed on the rest of the board, it would be a terrifying possibility.
Indeed.
But, yeah. And he provides an additional standard action die, like the other two Witch Kings.
Indeed.
Is going to be in the notes, but he is a minion for the purposes of playing Gandalf the White, like the Black Captain. And then, like the Chief, he's a bit easier to get. It's just Sauron at war and Angmar unconquered. So if you have 2 musters or a muster and a token, you could get the King of Angmar turn 1.
Yeah.
But the downside to getting a guaranteed turn 1 Witch King if you have 2 musters are that, first off, he's going to have some political implications. You immediately activate the North and then advance the North and Elves down. And then Angmar will also become a Sauron stronghold for the rest of the game, even if the King of Angmar is no longer in play.
Yes.
So you can now bring the King... So the King of Angmar, if you bring him in, suddenly now conquering Angmar and Mount Gundabad is enough for a Free People's military victory.
Exactly, and I think this makes it much more interesting and appealing also maybe to separate companions and maybe not necessarily go for Free People military victory, but at least to like slow down the advance of the shadow player, of his military advance. And yeah, I think that's very nice. Like as you mentioned to me before the recording, sometimes it's difficult also to threaten military victory obtains for the Free People player, because like the shadow strongholds are so far away from each other. But in this case we have Angmar and Mount Gundabad quite close, and so that's like the shadow player must be careful. But of course it's not like the shadow player is not is without any defenses in order to protect these strongholds, because as we see, the special ability of this new Witch King is quite strong, because it allows him, the shadow player, using a master action on that result, to recruit either 3 Sauron regular units in Angmar or 1 Sauron elite unit and 1 Nazgul in Angmar. And if all of these, if the King of Angmar is in Angmar, like it must be there, it cannot be elsewhere in the map. So like, not easy to take this Angmar anyway.
Yeah. Well, it also doesn't apply if Angmar's under siege. So if you can get him under siege, then he'll be vulnerable.
Sure.
But yes, I think. But yeah, I have had games where I have rolled like 3 or 4 musters. I immediately just send the Witch King up to Angmar, swap him in for the King of Angmar, and then get an instant army in Angmar. Which, if we look at the notes on exchanging the Witch King, it's you can either swap the King of Angmar out for the Black Captain or the Chief of the Ringwraiths, the base or the Loam version. If the requirements are met with a muster action, or you can swap one of them to the King of Angmar if the requirements are met, and if the Witch King is in Angmar.
Yes, you cannot just teleport it from any point of the map into Angmar. Like you need to bring any version of the Witch King, which is maybe the Chief or the Black Captain, into Angmar and then you switch it.
Yes, the couple of notes here are that you can only get each version once. So if you start with the King of Angmar and then you replace him with the Chief, you can't go back to the King of Angmar. And then you can also swap between the Black Captain and the Chief of the Ringwraiths, normally using the Loam rules.
Indeed. Okay. I think that's...
King of Angmar has another ability, which is...
sorry. Which is...
No, it's on the next page.
Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, it's on the top here.
Yeah, the big one, the interaction with the faction. Sorry, yes, quite an important one.
Yeah, whenever he conquers a settlement or reconquers a shadow settlement,
Yeah, for
it
that matter.
becomes a barrow. So
Exactly. That's
it,
one of the
yeah,
way we can create more barrows even before the Barrow-Wights are in play, as we mentioned before.
yes.
Right.
There are a couple of notes about like 3, 4 players.
Yeah, yeah.
Then there's the Last Prince, which this is another deeper cut, but explaining this one, it's when the last Prince of Cardalon died with his Dùnadan, the barrow that he died in, he was the same barrow. Well, the Barrow-Wight inhabiting his body was the one that Frodo and company encountered in the Fog on the Barrow Downs chapter of Fellowship of the Ring. And so this is a bit more of a stretch, imagining him as sort of a leader of the Barrow-Wights who could like march off with the Shadow Army. But yes, he's basically a Barrow-Wight with some extra abilities. He's got level 2. If you look at the next page,
Yep.
he's he once in play, the Last Prince is another Barrow-Wight. So he's a 9th Barrow-Wight. Though if he dies, then you can't bring him back. He's not a Barrow-Wight when he's not in play. He also works like Treebeard, where you can reroll a missed die when using a Barrow-Wight faction event card or call to battle card. Uh, entering, you can recruit him with a muster or recruit faction die result to recruit the Last Prince in a Barrow. And then
He's not a minion. Yes.
He's not a minion only for shadow combat cards. He's a minion
Exactly.
for the Witch King would already need to be in play for him to come in, so there's no point in having a he's not a minion for Gandalf. And then the Last Prince also cannot be recruited with other Barrow-Wights or by using a faction event card. And then, oh yeah, he's not a minion for shadow combat cards only. If the Free Peoples want to spend Blade of Westerness or Fateful Strike on him, knock yourselves out. But I just didn't want him to be able to use Fear of their Masters on his own.
Yeah, understandable. It's quite powerful. Yes, exactly. Okay, another notes that players can read, but this is pretty much about it for the Last Prince of Cardolan. And I think we can go on to the last character for the Shadow player, which is Sharkey.
Yeah, Sharkey's definitely a rare one, but Sharkey was actually the first piece of this expansion that I designed. He came first, and then everything. It was Sharkey, and then I designed Cìrdan, and then I was like, let's just make a full Eriador expansion. Yeah. So, Sharkey, what he can do is, so he's a rare. If Saruman's been eliminated and the Shire is controlled by the Shadow player, then this works kind of like moving Bilbo in Battle of the Five Armies with his ring. You can place Sharkey in the Shire as a free action before using a die or initiating a corruption attempt.
We remember that since it's quite recent, corruption attempt is a new mechanic introduced by Kings of Middle-earth. But yes, like maybe people, not everybody knows what a corruption attempt is because it's quite recent.
It's when the Shadow player in Kings of Middle-earth would take an eye out to try and corrupt a king.
Yeah.
But you basically can't do it before you pass.
Essentially, yes.
You have to actually use a die or you have to do something. Special abilities are he has his Ruffian's ability. The Shire is a settlement of and within the Isengard nation for the purposes of recruiting army units and faction figures, which means not only can you start pumping in wargs and Uruk-hai, but you can also recruit Dunlendings in there.
Yeah, which is crazy powerful in the end game.
Yeah, if you need 2 more... Sharkey is there in the event that you need 2 more points. Grey Havens are right there. You can start bringing in Dunlendings. You can start recruiting right next to it.
Yeah, indeed. Okay, and again, it's not Saruman. Okay, these are the notes people can read by
Yep.
themselves, and that's pretty much it about the principal components of this expansion. I would proceed quickly, if you agree, to just go through the new cards. Let me share again my screen.
And I,
1 second. Let me know if you can see the new screen.
oh, you're bringing in this one.
We are bringing in the
I
meme,
get this
everybody.
one. War of the Ring Discord's favorite card right here, Bill the Pony. It's
Absolutely. But like, how can you blame them? Absolutely. Everybody was requesting build upon him.
yeah, and I fulfilled their request. So this one's sort of an anti-Phlox. Phlox adds one, Bill the Pony subtracts one from the hunt roll. And since this is inevitably going to be a question, if Bill and Phlox are both on the table, you have to decide to use Bill first.
Ah, yes, indeed. Yes.
Yeah, because it's when you move the fellowship versus
Yeah.
Phlox has different language.
Right. Yeah, pretty nice. Pretty nice. And I would proceed with the next character card. 1 second. Which I think is quite interesting, and it encourages again to move the fellowship through the Eriador regions, which is Goldberry.
Yeah, Goldberry. This is another deeper cut. Goldberry is Tom Bombadil's wife, and you heal 1 corruption, or if you're in or adjacent to the Old Forest, you heal 2 corruption points instead. So it can be as strong as Bilbo's song if you're right there. And then if the power of Tom Bombadil's in play, you can draw 1 event card. And Bill the Pony's got a brave stand. Goldberry has a heroic death on it.
Yeah.
So,
but this effect is quite powerful. Like it's like healing 2 corruption points is like Bilbo's song, as you said. You can also potentially get to draw an event card. It's like, please, like get me all that.
Yeah. I do think it is hampered a bit by the fact that since being in or adjacent to Old Forest, you're probably going to be relatively early on the Fellowship's journey, and especially if you killed Gandalf first, then you might not even have 2 corruption points to heal.
That's true as well. Yeah, that's totally fair. Yes. But if the Barrow-Wights do their own job as well on the Fellowship, moving through Eriador, who knows? This can become handy for sure. Yes, and then I have to stop you here because like I have to make a remark towards you. Like you designers of official and non-official expansions need to stop, because it starts to feel to me that with new release you're trying to create the next most powerful card ever printed for the character, for the free people player, which he absolutely needs it. But the free people, as we noticed, like they got already enough power up thanks to Warm and Love, and such a card, like even though I'm blaming you this for now, I would love to play definitely, because these prophecies of Glorfindel is a treat, and I will let you explain it. But
yeah, it's you get to dig through 1 event deck. If it was a free people's event deck, choose an event card to take into hand. So if you really need, say, Thranduil or Guards of the Citadel, or if you really need Bilbo's song or There Is Another Way to get you over that last little hump of Mordor, Prophecies of Glorfindel lets you dig for it. Or you can look for the Shadows deck and discard a card. So you could get rid of Shadow's Gather, you could go get rid of Captain of Despair, you could get rid of Angmar Arose Again, which is one of the new cards. And then you shuffle the event deck you dug through. But it's
I mean, in Magic the Gathering language, if you're familiar with it, this is both either a tutor, like you go through looking for the card that you need in your deck, which is like busted as an effect, or it can also be a surgical extraction. Like you go through your opponent's deck and be like, I'm done with this, take it out. And it's just like amazing. Like I have to say that I like because you definitely want to play it. I don't think it's that overpowered. I think it allows maybe to slow down a little bit the game, but it's an amazing card. I love it. And also the combat card, it's quite important.
Yeah. Yeah, Blade of Westerness, so at least it's a choice. Like,
yeah. At least that. I agree.
yeah.
I agree. Okay, amazing character cards for the 3 people player. I would move on to the strategy. We have Bounders, which for all terms and purposes, it reminded me very much of Rangers of the North. It's just a little bit adjusted.
Yeah, since the Rangers of the North are now their own faction, the card effect, though, has been repurposed for the Bounders, who were sort of the military of the Shire. So it's Rangers of the North, except now it's only the Shire.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
And going on from here, let me open the next one. Chief of the Loss of.
Which this one I know is this one's a very situational card. This one's intended for well, there are 2 things you could do for it. First off, you can play this in Erebor if it's a free region, so it does put another leader in there. The other thing is that since the Shadow has 2 strongholds in the north, you could play this in Mount Graham, and it becomes a very strong option. Because now it's adjacent to both Angmar and Mount Gundabad. So this card's intended for like cheeky free people's military stuff.
Yes, and yeah, that was my intuition the first time that I read it as well. I was like, this is interesting. Potentially for like, as you said, cheeky movement, strategic stuff for a few people. Going on with the next one, we have Dwarves of the Arid Luin.
Yes, this one's so this one's got a lot of text for what it's saying is so there are 3 Arid Luin regions: North Arid Luin, Arid Luin, and South Arid Luin. Recruit 1 dwarven unit in 2 of them, and then in one of those 3 recruit a dwarven leader. Or if the dwarves are at war, you can recruit a dwarven unit regular elite and a dwarven leader in the Grey Havens.
Mm-hmm.
Which is part of this card is that it can be used to block off North Arid Luin, which blocks off sort of the back way from Angmar to the Grey Havens. And then the other thing is that it can also be used to reinforce the Grey Havens. South Arid Luin is
yes,
also,
I didn't notice that. You can also reinforce the Grey Havens in this way. Indeed.
Yeah, if the dwarves are at war.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The other thing is that South Arid Luin, it can also stop the Corsairs from coming up if you muster there, which... Well, I guess it just puts another army unit in the way.
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah.
And now we are gonna get into the Hero of Arnor strategy card that we just mentioned before. Quite interesting one.
Yeah, this one's like Sharkey. It's something where this is very rare, but when it comes in, it's going to be very cool. It's like You know how when you play Help Unlooked, something like Help Unlooked for, it's always just that it's always a game to remember.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this one's so Strider Aragorn needs to be in a Gondor region with Gondor at war. Uh, so and then you then recruit 2 Gondor units, regular elite, in Forlinden, Grey Havens, or Harlingen. Then move Strider Aragorn and any number of companions with him to the region you mustered in. And if Strider Aragorn was with the army of the dead men are eliminated. They do not get to come.
Mhm.
Any rangers with Strider Aragorn would actually get to come, though.
Yeah.
That's a note in there. So this is you can basically just recruit 2 elites near the Grey Havens, bring Aragorn up, and
And any other
start having some
companions.
fun.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. This is unbelievable. Yeah. And I think you also in your notes there is a remark regarding like Halbarad, that if he's with Strider and there are rangers figures with him, they're not allowed to move, or are they? I think they are
They are
allowed.
allowed to move.
They are allowed,
Yeah.
which is like okay, very interesting. Yeah, absolutely. Okay.
Yeah. They can.
Yes, sure. Go on. Sorry.
Yeah, they can come up to Eriador. They can get on the boats.
Yeah, nice. And then we have this return from the west.
Yeah, this is an interesting one because recruit 1 elven unit or an elven leader in the Grey Havens. This figure may be taken from your casualties. So
Yeah.
this is besides downgrading elites, this is the only one. This is the only possible way to get something out of your casualties.
Yeah, and it's also I was interested about the design of this card because at the first notice I was like, okay, but what about Cìrdan? I was like, but wait a second. Sometimes maybe you don't get the chance to recruit him, and also like the Grey Havens are under siege, and you don't have enough die to recruit him and a master. So sometimes like this is like a desperate measure in order to like try to save.
Yeah.
And it's very
This
cool the
is
fact that you can take it. Yeah, sorry.
It does require Cìrdan, but I suppose the benefits are that if you've already if Cìrdan's already sent all of the elven units to Dol Amroth or something, so you're out of elves to recruit normally, or if you don't have any musters but you have a Palantir to use. Yeah.
And yes, and that's it for the new Free People strategy cards. We also have some faction cards. We mentioned some of them before. This deals Sandom Sang for the Rangers, so maybe there is no
Yeah, we
need
can
to go
skip
over
over
it.
Deep Seldom Sung because that
Yeah.
we use because that's explained by the rulebook, but we can cover
But
Pride
we
of the
have
Northern Line
yes.
is
It's
it's
simply a
like the
recruiting card. Yes.
yeah, it's like the other ones for the Free People's factions, the other put 3 on the card. After a battle involving North units or Rangers takes place, you can either recruit one of the figures in Bree, or you can move all of the Rangers up to 2 regions.
Yes.
So, and then it's after a battle takes place, so you have to resolve the battle completely first.
And let me open the next one, which is Ranger. Ranger come here sometimes.
Yeah, this is
This is a
one's
combat, a call to battle. Sorry, my bad.
yeah. The name's taken from a Hunt for the Ring, but it's basically you eliminate a ranger figure to get scouts, which is
And we
so
have
now
yes.
yeah. So now you have basically unlimited uses of scouts if
Yes,
there's
indeed.
rangers.
Yeah. which sounds broken, especially for like 3 people military attempts. But again, like I'm not so sure. When I first read the Rangers, like these Rangers looks crazy powerful. Like they look incredibly powerful. But I said to myself, maybe there is a good reason behind it. One that I can think about, as you said, mentioned before, is the new version of Witch King, which is like is mastering
Yeah.
ability.
For
But
the
like I'm curious
unlimited
to test them. I'm curious to test them personally to see
for the
how strong they are.
yeah, for the unlimited scouts, the reasoning is that since while you're actually in the area around Bree, you don't need scouts as much as you think. Like unlimited scouts isn't as helpful. And then
Mhm.
the so unless you either walk rangers down manually, which is a massive investment of dice and cards, so at which
Y-
point like you've earned the unlimited scouts, or with the Gray Company, which we'll discuss, which we will probably
Yeah.
discuss soon.
Mhm.
The that can summon them with Strider Aragorn, and then that gives you 2 uses of scouts in the army with Strider.
Mhm.
So
And
that's
I think we can go directly and show the Great Company card. And I don't think it's necessary to show the other faction a call to battle card because like it's straightforward,
yeah.
it's
The
very
other call to
simple.
battle card. It's like with Doom We Come.
Hmm. The King of
It's
the
like
Dead.
the King of the Dead. It's
Yeah.
just eliminate one to do an attack, to do a pre.
Yes, here we have the Greek company, already mentioned many times in this video. And yeah, we could choose 3 rangers in the same region containing inside of Aragorn. Then if Halbarad is not in play, you can recruit him. Or if Halbarad is in play, you get to draw 2 event cards instead, as in the Great Company card. And as you mentioned before, Strider Aragorn is not required to be with a 3 people army.
Yep.
Uh, it just requires to be like in the map somewhere with, and not even necessarily with rangers. Like it can be anywhere. Like
Yeah.
the rangers just need to be
Anywhere.
in play.
Yeah. Anywhere that's not the Fellowship and not dead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We also have a new version of the Union of all our strength card, which just
Which,
includes the
it's all it does is that since you
yeah.
can in the base card, it just lists out that you can discard an Ent, Eagle, or Deadman faction event card. So all I did was make it Ent, Eagle, Deadman, or Ranger to
Mhm.
accommodate the new. So it's a really minor change. I don't think we need to see it.
Yeah, and secret and wandering people. And was the interaction with the fellowship that was mentioned before. Move all rangers up to 2 regions, then you may eliminate a ranger in the region containing the fellowship to hide the fellowship, which looks super strong.
Yeah. If you're on the Western Way, which
If
is
you're on the Western Way, yes. But to be
yeah.
fair, if you separate Aragorn or
Yeah,
Strider and you have the Great
and you have
Company,
the Gray Company,
yeah,
which at this point now you're resting on drawing and holding on to these 2 exact faction event cards, though.
yeah. And I think we're left with one last card, which is the Fork of Armor.
Which is just
Yeah.
recruit a ranger and Bree or add
Hmm.
it to the starting setup, then play 1 faction event card or reshuffle
Yeah.
all ranger or faction event cards. This one.
Very,
Yeah.
like, we know these effects very well.
Yeah.
And so, going for the shadow cards, if we go to the character cards, we have these Old Man Willow.
Yes, this is another little character from the very early chapters of Fellowship. Uh, so if it's the Fellowship's within 2 regions of Old Forest, which is, I think it's a bit far thematically, but it's enough to ensure that any optimal path from Rivendell to the Grey Havens would pass through this at some point. So this means that the Western Way is no longer risk-free. You draw a random companion, and then either you add corruption equal to their level, or you separate them and place them in Old Forest.
Yeah.
If Gollum's the guide, add corruption instead, which is... Well,
And
the
the
goal
cool,
of this one
it's essentially a
is...
Lure of the Ring, but without...
but it separates them instead, yeah?
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't
Which-
kill them. And it doesn't require to the Fellowship to be revealed. But it requires to be within 2 regions of the Old Forest.
Yeah, so you're essentially signing yourself up for another Lure of the Ring if you're going through the Western Way.
Yeah. And only 2 new cards for the character deck for the Shadow. These Shire Beacons. Which I think is crazy powerful. If I remember correctly.
Yes. It's basically an anti-last battle. So it's move any or all of the Nazgul, then if a Nazgul is in the Shire or Bree, and that settlement is conquered. So you have to either conquer the Shire or Bree first, or you have to send the Witch King up to the Shire or Bree. Then you treat all hunt rolls as successful, so long as there's at least 1 eye in the hunt box, even if they didn't roll any hits for the remainder of the turn or until the Fellowship's revealed. So,
very nice.
I would note that it's not particularly useful in Mordor, besides for moving any or all of the Nazgul, since all the hunt rolls are already successful. And then the Fellowship could also just decide not to move for the rest of the turn, so...
Yeah. But
I think it's...
Yes?
I think it's strong in the correct situation.
I agree. Yes.
Yeah.
Totally. And then we have some new strategy cards as well. Let me go through them. Which are few more compared to the character cards. For the Shadow player, Angmar arose again.
Yeah.
Which I think is meant to replace the return of the Witch King, or not? No.
Yeah, it does. And this one's if you get the chance to play it, I think this card actually is the other reason why I was so hesitant to have the King of Angmar be moving off into the rest of the board.
Right.
Because, like, if you could play this card in, like, Gondor or something, like, this card would be broken. It's, you move the army containing the Witch King up to 2 regions, then you can attack. So it's about the same distance as the Wome Corsairs transporting.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's crazy powerful. And remind me, what's the distance between Angmar, like maybe you know it, maybe you don't, between Angmar and or Eret Luid or the Grey Heavens?
This card, I know it allows you to immediately attack Rivendell from Angmar.
Oh wow. Oh wow, okay.
Rivendell's 2 regions from Angmar, and then I don't believe it can immediately attack the Shire or Grey Havens. Let me check.
Maybe Eret Luin? No, I think it could. I think it could Eret Luin.
Okay, so it can attack Rivendell, the Shire, or Eret Luin. It cannot hit the Grey Havens, Angmar.
But still, amazing.
So, yeah, it's still very strong, but
yes, definitely.
And this is why I was so hesitant. This is why I had the non-flying minion. This is why I had to swap into the King of Angmar. He needs to be an Angmar.
I understand, because if you apply that to any kind of strong, like having like a
Like,
free Corsair, like a faction attack on any part of the board,
yeah.
it's like,
I mean,
okay,
imagine like having this in like Dol Guldur.
yeah, no,
Like, you
absolutely,
can
like
just go up, immediately hit the do line in
exactly,
one die.
yeah, too much, honestly.
Yeah.
Very strong, specifically in the region of Eriador, and I think it's fitting. But for the rest of the map, I agree with you that it would be
You'd have to
exaggerated.
invest in a Chief Sheriff. This one's
Yeah, sorry, like I was just
uh,
presenting a new one,
I
but
was
if you
just
want to
saying,
finish to
Angmar
make a
rose
comment,
again. I think you'd have to invest a number of dice that would be to the point where like you might as well just move up the army up normally.
yeah,
To
and Swarm of Bats is always nice, but I think it
Swarm of-
replaces the same card, so like which
yeah,
already has a Swarm
it
of Bats. So,
replaces Return of the Witch King.
yeah,
Uh,
so yeah, like
Chief
it's
Sheriff.
yeah, so Chief Sheriff.
It's Guards at war. Roll 2 dice, scoring a hit against that army for each result of 4+, and applying a casualties immediately. Then, if there's not a Free People's Army in the Shire anymore, you can recruit an Isengard unit in the Shire, taking control if necessary.
Oh wow! So okay,
It's I think if you draw this turn 1, then it can be very strong. Though it's like
I mean,
the
I can
main
imagine
intention with this
some
was to
nice
like
interaction with, for example, the Shadow Lanterns or the Shadow Gathers.
it also helps get Sharkey in, but
Yeah.
it's I think the big thing is that if the Free Peoples just recruit a Northern elite, either through Bounders or just with a muster die, then this card suddenly can no longer kill the army in the Shire, since it can only do a maximum of 2 hits.
It's still a desperate battle, though.
Yeah, it's still a desperate battle, which is, since I'm also taking out a desperate battle here, this is replacing Monsters Roused.
Yes.
So
Yeah, I did not consider Monster House so far in all this conversation, but yes, indeed. Like if we had that as well, it would be maybe too much reinforcement in that part. And we have this Fell Winter.
Fell Winter. Play on the table if the King of Angmar is in play. Prevents the Free People's player from recruiting reinforcements in Ered Luin, the Grey Havens, the Shire, or Bree.
Amazing.
Recruit reinforcements, I would note, is a specific action described in the base rulebook. So, like, you can still recruit with a card, you can still recruit with Cìrdan's ability, stuff like that. You can still recruit faction figures.
And it can be discarded through a Will of the West or any action that result if a companion is in Ered Luin, Grey Havens, the Shire, or Bree. Again, Halbarad, thanks for being a companion. Very nice indeed. Or like any other companion.
Cìrdan does not count for this, but
yes,
you could also send Gandalf up there. Old Man Willow could also put someone in Old Forest, and then a character die puts them in Shire or Bree.
Yes. Okay.
And then it's a great host, so that's
yes. And which card are you placed?
This one's just a completely new card.
Okay.
Yeah, there are a couple just completely new cards.
Like I guess the next one, which is the Middle Days are passing.
This is a replacement of a Return to Valinor.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Play on the table if you control at least one Elven Stronghold. Each turn, immediately after rolling action dice, the Free People player must eliminate one Elven unit or one Elven leader anywhere on the game board. Which to me makes much more sense compared to the original Return to Valinor.
Yeah, it's
much more sense.
I still think that this will probably get played usually for Deadly Strife, But
Okay.
I think because you can discard it with a will or any action die result in an Elven Ring if Cìrdan's in play. So
Like, let's not
can
underestimate the long-term planning that requires to play with factions. Like we have seen that, for example, in Warhammer. I think Warhammer extends the length of the game compared to like the base of
yeah,
Warhammer, and so you have to think more strategically in some sense. And I think this is a strategic card to think about it. And I
yeah, I
can
think
imagine scenarios where this would be much more effective than a simply deadly strike, or as much as effective anyway.
yeah. And then I do feel also like this card might be another one like the Palantir where the Free Peoples wants to discard it immediately though,
Hmm.
just because it's otherwise the Free Peoples because otherwise if this thing gets allowed to stay on the table for like 3 or 4 turns, then this thing can absolutely destroy the Free Peoples.
Yeah, I agree. But yes, and there is a nice interaction with Cìrdan, we see, like because you can use the
Yeah.
Will of the West or any action
Normally,
die and one Elven if Cìrdan is in play. So that's very nice, I
yeah.
would say.
So
And we go for the last strategy card, and then we're going to analyze the faction, but event cards for the shadow.
this,
But worse than Mordor. Play if Sharkey is in
yeah,
play, recruit 2 Isengard units, regular or elite, and 1 bundle in the Shire. Which
and
maybe it doesn't make such an impact at the level of the text, but if you pay attention to it, it's like, what is, wait, what? Like, 2 Isengard units and 1 Dallin, like, this is crazy powerful.
yeah, it's this recruits potentially 4 HP, which is
Yeah,
this card is amazing for like if you just need 2 more victory points and the Grey Havens are right there.
yeah.
I think, though
And
it's
you know
also an
what?
onslaught. Yeah,
Now, you know what I was thinking? Now I see more reasons for the powerful attack effects of the Rangers of the North. Because I didn't
yeah,
make the connection the first time I read these strategy cards. But now that I'm seeing all together in a general view, I'm like, yes, it all makes sense. You need to have those powerful attacks from the Rangers because there is no other way. Like honestly, with these recruitment cards that we have seen so far, you need them. You need those attack
which
effects.
I feel like part of it is that I don't want there to be massive power creep, but it also the problem with Ariador is that since it's such a pain to play in normally, that's why nobody plays in it. The options necessarily have to be more powerful than the base game,
I agree.
like just to encourage people to play there.
Mm-mm, mm-mm.
So, yes, yeah. I think
Uh,
any one of these, like left out on its own, could become a monstrosity. Together, I think they hopefully balance each other out.
I agree. I would be very interested to playtest this. By the way, as we're talking about it, is there any way that this is gonna be implemented on Java? I don't know if you contacted the Games Jar.
I don't have the programming skills to put this on Java.
Sure, but I was wondering if you had the same
On
contacts with.
Tabletop Simulator, I
Ah, okay.
on Tabletop Simulator, I will have an. I will hopefully once finals week here is done, hopefully get around to finishing the Tabletop Simulator implementation of this, and that'll be
Yeah.
playable for people.
Very cool, very cool. Okay, yes, with tabletop, yes, that would be interesting. Because I was planning also in the future to publish like a battle report video about this, as I'm doing for all the alternative setups or expansions that I explored so far. So if there is a way to play it on tabletop, I think I will try it for sure to see what it
Yeah,
gives. And okay, going into the Barrow-Wights faction cards again. Maybe we don't show all of them. We have mentioned some of
yeah. I
them,
think
like
we can
Wither
skip
and
over
Leather.
Withered Lands. That one's
But we have this one that interacts with the fellowship, which is quite interesting, as if a trap was closing.
Yeah, so if the fellowship's not in a free people settlement, you move all the Barrow-Wights. Then you can discard a Barrow-Wight figure in the region with the fellowship to draw a hunt tile. If it's an eye, discard it with effect. Otherwise, follow the rules for a successful hunt, except that the free people's player must reduce hunt damage, if any, by taking a casualty before using the ring. So this means
I mean,
they
it's
either
essentially a
take the
power-up
guide,
of...
or they have to take a random. So
It's like a power-up versions of the evil things.
I think it's
No.
it's like it's sort of halfway between evil things and foul thing, where it's like evil things and the discard a thing to draw a tile, but then foul thing, it's not random because the free peoples can choose to take the guide, but it's
Is it? I
yeah.
think in foul thing you're forced to go random.
With this card you can choose to take the guide.
Sorry. Yeah, you're right.
With this card you have to take the guide or a random. With foul thing you have to take a random.
Yeah. So I love this card when I read it, and I also love the next one, which we already mentioned before, is this dread in his heart. As we mentioned before, is this ability that allows you to choose a region on the board which does not contain an anchor the free people's stronghold. That region is now a barrow. We mentioned it before. It was nice just to show it again quickly. And yes, going on, I will not show maybe the call to battle cards. I think people
I think we can show a
cold behand.
the one that's it's. I think we can probably skip over.
Low moan.
We
Maybe.
can probably skip over Cold Be Heart and Hand and Bone. We could look at Heartless and Miserable. I think that one's
okay. Let's
at least interesting enough.
Yes.
Since Heartless and Miserable, if you read through the card text, but this one theoretically, this one makes it so that you could put Gandalf in the Grey Havens. That's a legal thing, but this can kill Gandalf.
Yeah, I noticed that.
This is the only. This is.
No. I was just saying that I noticed the crazy power of this card. Like I didn't want to
if you get lucky, you can kill Gandalf, which is.
Yeah, like it's crazy power, but like it's required to like roll a 3 hits, no? To kill.
Yeah, you have to roll 3 hits, which even with 5 Barrow-Wights, that's still above expected value. So you have to get lucky.
Sure. Love this. And then we have Low Moan, but I guess it's about recruiting. I'm not
Low Moan from the ground, yeah.
Okay, maybe it's not necessary to show it like it's.
I just shortened the name of it. Yeah, it's just recruit. There's 2 copies of this one. Recruit, move Barrow-Wights, or add them to the starting setup. Not that.
And that's it. That's it. I think this is it. There's the Withered Land that we mentioned before, but it's the attack effect. And the Cold Behand and Heart and Bone, it allows you to create a barrow.
If you conquered a settlement that round, yeah.
That's a call to battle card. And this is about all the new cards. Maybe we can quickly show the new tokens that we were talking about.
If you want to show some of the images.
This is, for example, for
the Angmar Stronghold, the Forlondon overlay. And did I mess up and leave out the Barrow-Wight token? I think I did.
No, I think you have it. I have it here.
Okay.
I have it here. So this is for the Forlondon, like there is this change in the map. And for the Barrow-Wight, no, I have it. Let me open it with... That's it. I have it.
Yeah, that's
Okay, and I think this is it. Like we explored all your new expansion, and maybe like in conclusions, I could leave you some space to acknowledge some of the people who helped you. Like if there are some acknowledgements, or like
Yeah,
people you would like to thank, like you have
yeah.
free space now. It's up to you. Like
Like,
I tortured enough for like almost 2 hours, so it's it's your
think,
space.
uh, first off, I'd like to give credit to WF74, Momo 38, Matej Kadil, and Adam Lane, and especially John Howe for all of the art that I used. I'd also like to thank DevKev for the scans for their tabletop simulator mod, which I modified to create the event cards. And then I'd also like to thank Rafamir, who they're the Treason of Isengard inspired this. I'd like to thank Board Cube, Complex Flips, and Lancer for extensively helping in refining the design of certain things. Lancer play tested this with me. Dr. Boson also said that they were playing with the alternate Strider Dùnadan and gave some commentary on refining that. I'd like to thank Undercurrent for their help in creating the Barrow-Wight faction event cards. I'd like to thank Roberto Di Meglio, Marco Maggi, and Francesco Nepatello for their designing of the original War of the Ring. And then I would also like to thank you for taking the time to look at this and offering to have me here to talk about it with you.
You don't need to thank me. I'm the one thanking you because this, as soon as I read it, I was like, this needs to be covered. I was surprised nobody had covered this already, and it is. I think it deserves its attention. And I think members of the Discord community should, at least in my opinion, give it at least a try by reading the PDF, which is it's very easy to read. I did it in 15-20 minutes. Very nice. And but yeah, like a very good design. I love the flavor. I love the thought process behind it. I just cannot wait to play it on TTS, I guess, in some next future. So thank you, Gilly, for this expansion, and thank you for your contribution to the community. It's very much appreciated.
Yes, yes, of course, and yes, I think that this is about it for the Waste of the Witch King. And
So
I will.
yeah,
I'll be watching the. If anybody watching this video has any lingering questions after reading it, you can ask. You can ask in the comments of this video I'll be watching. You can ask
definitely.
on the
Mhm.
Board Game Geek thread. Or you can also ask in the House Rules channel of the Discord, or you can just message me directly there, and I will be happy to answer any lingering questions that any of you have.
Indeed. And I thank you again, Vanali, for participating in this video with me. And
Yeah.
yeah, go check it out, this amazing expansion. Thanks for everybody who has watched this video. We are now almost 2 hours in, but it was definitely worth it. I make long videos. People who follow my channel, they know that. So like, it's up to them. Like they know this is the material that I provide. But I think each one of them enjoys this. So that's it. Thanks a lot, and play this amazing expansion. See you, everybody. Thanks, Savannah, again. Bye bye.
Yes. And thank you everybody for watching this.